Hi class, this is Miss Bess. This video is about solving quadratic equations by square root. I promise this one is not as long as the first one. The process for solving by square root is pretty straightforward. So we're going to go through some examples, and then if you guys have any questions, please have them ready for me on Wednesday. All right, so first example, we have 2x squared plus 1 equals 17. The first step is solving by square root is to isolate the square term. So whatever has the exponent 2, you want to isolate that term. So in our case, we are isolating x squared. Okay, so this is the term we're going to get by itself, x squared. So first I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, then divide both sides by 2, and that cancels out the 2 here, and you have x squared equals 8. And then once you get it isolated, then you want to take the square root of each side. So here I have the square root of x squared and the square root of 8. Now over here to the side, you can see that the square root of x squared is equal to x, because x squared is just x times x. And since there's a pair here that represents one root and the root is x. And then I also simplified the square root of 8. The square root of 8 is 4 times 2, or the square root of 2 times 2 times 2. And I have a pair of 2's here, so that's one root, and it becomes 2 square root of 2. And then you can't forget the plus or minus. Okay, so your final answer is x equals plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Now, remember that a quadratic equation always has two solutions. So your solutions are the positive 2 square root of 2 and negative 2 square root of 2. And then that's it. All right, here's another example. We got 1/3 times the sum of x plus 5 squared equals 7. So first thing you're going to do is isolate. Our squared term is x plus 5 squared. It's in parentheses and it has the exponent 2. So that is what we're trying to get by itself. So first I'm going to multiply both sides by 3, because that's the reciprocal of 1/3. And that's the way that you can cancel out the 1/3. You could also divide by 1/3 in your calculator. You're going to get the same answer. So I multiply both sides by 3. And so that cancels out 1/3, and this becomes 7 times 3, which is 21. Now I have x plus 5 squared equals 21. So I'm now isolated, and now I need to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of x plus 5 squared, that's the same as the square root of x plus 5 times x plus 5. Okay, so since I have a pair of x plus 5's, that's one root, and it comes out to just x plus 5. So now I have x plus 5 equals the square root, or the plus equals plus or minus the square root of 21. The square root of 21 cannot be reduced anymore. So we're just going to leave it like that. And then now I have to solve for x. Okay, that is the goal here, to solve for x. So I have to subtract 5 from both sides. And now my answer is x equals -5 plus or minus the square root of 21. Now, some of you may wonder, like, why is the -5 in front instead of behind? That's just the way that it's written. And that's the most common way. That's the way you'll see it 99% of the time. It's not any different than this. Okay, you could put -5 on the back side and you still get the same answer, but that's just not the way that we write it. So your solutions are -5 plus square root of 21 and -5 minus square root of 21. And that's your final answer. All right, so next there's a U-try. You can pause the video here and try that on your own. All right, so first decide, what is your squared term? Your squared term is x plus 1 squared. So you want to get that by itself. And we got to get rid of the 4. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. Okay. So dividing both sides by 4, you end up with x plus 1 squared equals 25. Now you isolated your square term, so you're going to take the square root of both sides. So you end up with x plus 1 equals plus or minus 5, because the square root of 25 is 5. And then you have to solve for x. So you subtract 1 from both sides, and you end up with negative 1 plus or minus 5. Now, your solutions are negative 1 plus 5 and negative 1 minus 5. These solutions are a little bit different than the ones that we've had prior to this because you don't have any radicals. So if you don't have any radicals, you need to continue to simplify. You can add negative 1 plus 5. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4. Okay. And negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. Right? So your solutions are 4 and negative 6. All right, and that's it. Now, the square root method is you want to use the square root method when you don't have any linear terms or you just have a binomial squared like this. These are binomial squareds, x plus 1 squared and x plus 5 squared. Okay, those are binomial squares, so you can use the square root method in that case. You can also use the square root method when you have here where you just have x squared and you have no x term, like just like 5x or 10x or something like that. You just have an x squared. Then you can solve by square roots. Okay. All right. So make sure you have your questions ready on Wednesday, and I'll talk to you guys then.